I'm sure everyone's heard this by now. This was a big headline. This was like this was like in the news headline, is that Amazon MGM, which is just Amazon, they own MGM, but they kept MGM in there for a little old school Hollywood, legacy magic.
Oh, yeah.
Amazon MGM is now in full creative control of the James Bond franchise moving forward. And before, Joe, I get your take on what that means for the future of the James Bond franchise, I want to give the people a little background on how we got here. Because the James Bond movie franchise, which is the 5th highest grossing movie franchise of all time.
Internationally.
Yes. And I would, look, they count MCU and Spider-Man as two separate things. To me, that's one thing. James Bond's number 4. But whatever. However you do it, it's 4th or 5th highest grossing franchise of all time. And it has famously always been a family business. It's always been under very tight control of the Broccoli family, baby. The Broccoli family. Because if you go back to the early 60s, it was a producer named Cubby Broccoli and his partner Harry Saltzman who originally acquired the rights to Ian Fleming's novels. They started producing the Bond movies, starting with Dr. No in 1962 through their production company Eon, and they had United Artists handling the distribution, which will be important as we go along. And with all due respect to Harry Saltzman, who ended up selling his shares in 1975, this has been the Broccoli family business since the beginning up until the present day, starting with Cubby, and then it passed to his daughter Barbara Broccoli and his stepson Michael G. Wilson when he passed away in 1996. And Barbara Broccoli did a hell of a job. She shepherded it through the Daniel Craig era, some of the high points of the entire franchise. So this has been a successful family business all along. So how did Amazon enter the picture? How did they weasel their way into this family business? Well, it all started when MGM, to go back a little bit, MGM bought United Artists in 1981, and that was following the Heaven's Gate fiasco, which basically, put United Artists out of business, and MGM bought them on the cheap. And then MGM changed corporate hands and corporate owners 10 times until it was finally bought by Amazon in 2022, because Amazon was looking to make themselves a player in the movie business. And what's the best way to do that? Well, you buy a back catalog. You buy a legacy studio with a back catalog that has IP. They really bought MGM for James Bond, right, Joe? That was like the main move there. They wanted control of James Bond. They wanted their own potential sort of big cinematic franchise. That's why they bought MGM, and that's why they were willing to pretty significantly overpay for MGM. It was valued at $3.5 to $4 billion. They bought it for $8.5 billion dollars. Yes, MGM. But it wasn't enough. It turns out it wasn't enough to just get ownership of the James Bond IP. They were not happy with the pace that the Broccoli's go at, particularly when you're changing Bonds. It's very normal. There was 6 years in between Timothy Dalton and Pierce Brosnan. There was 4 or 5 years in between Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig. The Broccoli's modus operandi has always been quality control. Just some old-fashioned, sort of British, just we're going to do this the proper way. We're going to take our time. We're going to make sure the product is good. And all of that. Amazon's we need a fucking TV show, and we need merch, and we need to blow this thing out fast because we spent $8.5 million on this, and you're not moving fast. $1 billion, thank you. And you're not moving fast enough. So they just, the news came out last week. Amazon paid an additional $1 billion, and surely that includes a bunch of stock and stuff, but they paid an additional $1 billion to get full creative control over the franchise moving forward. So it's not just that they own it and the Broccoli's get to decide the direction of the franchise. Now Bezos et al. Owns the creative control, the future of Bond. Joe, what is the reason for Amazon's urgency here? And then also, what does this mean for the future of the James Bond franchise, in your opinion?
The urgency comes from the fact that IP ownership dominates value assessment of studios and companies. But additionally, Brett, the license for James Bond goes up in 10 years. What I'm saying is, in 10 years, Ian Fleming's famous character James Bond is in the public domain. So me and you and Uwe Boll could make one with no problems at all.
Get ready for Uwe Boll's GoldenEye.
We could make a James Bond.
Now, the one asterisk on that I was reading was That will not include anything that was specifically made for the movies. So a lot of the iconic cinematic aspects, like the score, the gun barrel, things like that, are not going to become IP. But like, it's the same thing that we saw with Steamboat Willie and I don't know, what was it, Winnie the Pooh, and all these other characters that have become IP. Surely we're going to get a lot of like trash B movies with James Bond in them, which will be a lot of fun. But Amazon certainly is on the clock to like make the most of this investment while they can.
Well, I'm just saying that's why they wanted to push their chips in the table now rather than in 3 years. It's just like diminishing returns because yes, you own the IP for 10 years. Who knows what kind of chicanery they could pull in public domain law in those 10 years. But also like Brett's point, like obviously it's more important to buy the catalog and all of the songs and all of the costumes and the history. And of course you want to buy the asset, but it's just that's why they were on the clock.
Yeah.
Additionally, urgency, when you think about the marketplace and you think about Disney. Now Disney has Star Wars, they have Marvel, they have fucking
Fox
Disney
stuff. They got Alien.
They got Planet of the Apes. They got everything. They got it for days. What's Amazon have? I was just laying in bed last night, honestly thinking like, what IP does Amazon own? I'm sure they own like this, that, and the other, but like, you listen, top of your head, like, okay, Lord of the Rings. They made a Lord of the Rings show. I don't know if they own the IP or whatever. They got licensing to make Lord of the Rings TV show and content, but I don't think of Amazon as like a hub for major IP. No. And if you want to play in this game, the game of being one of the top 5 studios in 2025,
you need a franchise.
Honey, you got to have a franchise. And Bond's a cool franchise, Brett. I don't know if I paid $9.5 billion for the right to run James Bond into the ground. Seems a little steep. Like, what's the blend of TV shows, movies, podcasts, T-shirts that can yield them $10 billion? Yeah. So they make $0.5 billion in profit.
Because the actual movies are always going to be the highest. So anything they spin off presumably would be a lower grossing project. Because nothing like the big movies with James Bond is always going to be the highest grossing thing. So, but they're thinking like in the aggregate, if we can do, like John Wick has done. If we start spinning off with different characters, if Bond girls get their own series, if Bond villains get their, what about a Bond villain Suicide Squad? This is what everyone at Amazon headquarters is doing right now. I want you to make this into Star Wars, Harry Potter. I want you to blow this franchise out.
This is why the Broccoli's
doesn't have the legs.
This is why the Broccoli's hated working with Amazon. So why sell? And yes, money's great, but why sell? Well, Barbara Broccoli's producing partner, he is almost 83, 84, and he wants to go sit on a beach and die. And here's the thing that Barbara Broccoli, the genius, realized. You can either make your money now or just get consumed by time and fire.
Yeah, Barbara Broccoli does not want to be getting calls from Amazon every Monday morning.
No, but Brett, what I'm also saying is like, Barbara Broccoli might. This is a little cynical, but like she just understands the writing on the wall. Whether or not she sells, like Amazon owns James Bond, like in 5 years or in 10 years, because just the inertia of money and power and IP and Hollywood and tech. She's just said. Also, like her asset is going to diminish because the big James Bond movie once every 3 years. That's just going to follow the trend of every other theatrical distribution release ever. And maybe the first one with Josh O'Connor does really well or whatever.
It's not going to be Josh O'Connor. There's no way Amazon paid that much money for Josh O'Connor.
Well, now it's Amazon, whatever. So now like The Rock is the James Bond or whatever. And I just like...
And honestly, no shade to Barbara. No shade to Barbara.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is like,
no shade to Barbara.
I whip out 3 more Bonds in the next 10, 15 years of my working life. Now Barbara Broccoli has like a fucking war chest of $1 billion. Yeah. She's still a producer. She's still alive. If she wants to go make a movie, she can make whatever the fuck she wants. Make something beautiful. She likes beautiful things. Yeah. She made Till, that movie about Emmett Till that came out last year, 2 years ago. And Amazon just let her did that because she's fucking Barbara Broccoli and it made James Bond. She can do whatever the fuck she wants. They're not going to make a shit ton of money on Till, but now she can go make a bunch of good movies.
She's free. And I'd like to say, also, like, you did it, baby. It's like the Daniel Craig run was incredible. You went out on top. I also love that she, spoiler alert, she kills Bond in No Time to Die, right? So it's like she like kind of put this stamp on, like, she kind of killed the franchise almost symbolically with that last Daniel Craig movie. She knew what was going to happen, and she said, okay, anything that happens next is like not on the Broccoli's. The Broccoli's did it, baby. We did it for 60 fucking years, and now we're gonna sell, and we're gonna,
it's notable.
Make Till and live on a beach.
It's notable, Brett, and it's sad though in a way
I know.
because
it's changing.
I think people got affected by it because Bond, a classy franchise handled well, the core of which is movies or books, but fuck books, obviously movies. And
It sucks to have Bezos own another thing.
It just sucks to
It
have
sucks
Amazon
Bezos
own
owns
it,
another thing.
and they're
Yeah.
gonna run it into the
Yeah.
ground,
Yeah.
and that's life.
Can I
don't know what
hit
to
you
tell
with one? And look, I don't want to be pro tech, pro Bezos here. Can I hit you with one
Please,
possible
no.
upside
No,
here? Okay.
I love James Bond, so I would like some
Yes,
upside.
because
James
look,
Bond's cool.
Anytime I like how tightly this family controlled this franchise just because it's so different than every other franchise. But there are some limitations to that as well. Maybe they were a little too precious about the material, because one thing that they were resistant to over the years is there were big major directors who wanted to take a swing at a Bond. Tarantino, Christopher Nolan famously wants to do a Bond, and the Broccoli's were always resistant because they would not give those directors full creative control over the project, and they're not going to, Christopher Nolan's not going to do a movie if he doesn't have full creative control.
Duh.
So now,
Yeah, I heard.
I wonder if Amazon is going to be more conducive. They are less precious about the material. Maybe we get a Christopher Nolan Bond movie.
The only problem with that plan is timing,
Yeah.
because he's shooting the Odyssey now. That'll be in theaters in 26. That whole
He's
thing.
spoken for
So
like 2
he-
years.
He probably has another thing. Like, I wonder if you wouldn't see that Bond for 5 years.
Yeah.
I also wonder what's Amazon going to do about theatrical distribution, and how is auteurs like of Christopher Nolan's size going to navigate theatrical and streaming and
Right.
tech and
True.
over the next 5 years. I'm not trying to throw cold water on that super fun
It's
idea.
just one upside, one possible upside
can't-
for movie
I just
lovers.
can't- I just
for
can't-
movie lovers.
I just
okay,
can't
we gotta
get-
take what we
I
can
can't
get.
get too excited.
We gotta take what we can get.
And by the way, Christopher Nolan already made his Bond film. It's called Tenet, and you can check it out.
Okay.
anytime.
Now we will get an indication. I think a big indication of where Amazon's going to go with the franchise when we find out who the next freaking Bond is. That's kind of what all this is waiting on. Jeff Bezos tweeted out, "Who do you guys want to see as the next Bond?"
And the internet just
said Henry Cavill.
Anthony Anderson. What if like 700 replies? He was like, "What?" There was just like a lot of caged up
Anderson
energy.
Hive just
Anthony
stood
Anderson!
up loud and proud. Now the people's champ right now is Henry Cavill. He was getting the most votes. It seems like a basic
Duh.
choice, which seems
Look,
probably
Cavill
gonna
would be
Amazon's
awesome.
choice.
but
Yeah, it's a safe choice. We're of course always the Idris Elba, dream is
I know,
always
it's-
out there.
but
It's
he's
not- it's
now
not-
he
doesn't want to
said
do
no
it.
1,000
Yes.
times. He's too old. even
Michael
though he-
Fassbender, no. Tom
Why not?
Hardy, no. I just don't think they would do it at
Hardy?
this point.
Hardy's Bond is like Bond, James Bond.
James Bond.
I think a martini stirred.
Blofeld. Aaron Taylor Johnson would jump at the chance. I'm
Yeah,
sure
no shit.
he's like sent
But
in
no,
100 self tapes.
he's the guy that he's the famous bouncing ball. Like he
Yeah.
is the piece they've been holding up for so long. He's
Yeah.
never going to actually get it.
He's not going to do it. He's not going to
Harris
do it.
Dickinson over my dead body.
Dickinson floated in there somehow.
Why? Like why? Because he's young and
Because he's
white?
so wispy.
Yeah, fuck
he can
off.
squeeze
He's not
in
gonna be
between door
James
cracks.
Bond. Fuck you.